Good afternoon and welcome to NASA TV and the Expedition 5051 Crew News Conference. We have the Expedition 5051 crew right here. They are almost done with their training and getting ready for a launch in Baikonur on November 15th. First, we have Commander Peggy Whitson, who will be returning to the space station for her third long-duration mission, setting a new record for women on board the space station. Next to her, we have Thomas Pesquet, who is a French astronaut with the European Space Agency, ESA. Will be going to space for his first time, getting ready for his first mission. And on down the line, Oleg Novitsky from Roscosmos. He will be his second tour at the space station. They will be up again launching on November 15th and landing currently on April 20th. So if you have been paying attention, you know that Peggy Whitson has 156 days in space already, and that will give her 376 days in space already. That'll give her another 156, and with that launch date now fall just a couple of days short of breaking Jeff Williams' record that he just is working on setting for most time spent by a U.S. astronaut in space. So we had expected her to beat that record. That's changed a little bit. Want to let everybody know about that change. But what we're going to do today is focus on what they are going to be doing while they are at the space station. We'll be taking questions here in the room. We have a lot of folks with questions lined up, and you can also, of course, participate via phone bridge. If you are participating that way, you can press *1 if you have a question, or *2 if your question gets answered. And also, we'll be taking questions using the hashtag AskNASA on social media. So if you have a question that you'd like to send in, we'll be watching for those. But we're going to start and let Peggy introduce herself.
Okay, as Brandy mentioned, I've been to the space station a couple of times. I am originally from Iowa. I grew up on a farm there and went to small college, Iowa Wesleyan. We have some representatives here today from Wesleyan. Then I came to Houston and did my graduate work in biochemistry at Rice University. I was lucky enough to fly 2 previous times on board the space station. And I've always said that I have the best job in the world because I get to work with NASA. I love what it stands for in exploration. And so I'd like to hand it over to Thomas to talk about himself. Please, Thomas.
So I'm Thomas Pesquet. I'm currently an astronaut with the European Space Agency. I was born in France, in Normandy, where I grew up, and then I studied aerospace engineering in college. And after my graduation, I had a few jobs in the aerospace industry, mostly abroad. And then I came back to France, and I worked for the French Space Agency for a couple of years. I became a pilot. Airline pilot for Air France, or national company, and I flew mostly all around Europe for 5 or 6 years. Became an instructor, and in 2008 I was lucky enough to be part of ESA's new selection of 6 individuals from all across Europe who are currently flying to the International Space Station and getting ready for whatever comes up next in the future. So I'm obviously very excited because that's going to be my first flight in space. I'm lucky enough to fly with 2 fantastic individuals. So I know we're going to have fun. I know we're going to get a lot of work done, and I can't wait to launch in November.
All right. And Oleg, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Я родился в 1971 году в маленьком белорусском городе. Там же закончил среднюю школу. После поступил в Борисоглебское летное училище. И очень долгое время служил на Северном Кавказе. Имею звание ветеран боевых действий. Закончил службу командиром эскадрильи, полковник ВВС в запасе. В 2012 году выполнил 1 космический полет в составе экипажа с Кевином Фордом из НАСА и Евгением Тарелкиным. Сейчас выполняем подготовку к своему следующему полету. Рад, что такой замечательный экипаж будет находиться как в корабле, так и на станции. Я думаю, выполним все поставленные задачи. Все.
So I was born in 1971 in a small Belarusian town, and Cherventsy it's called. I graduated from the school there, and then I went to the Borisogleb flight school. I also served at the Northern Caucasus region, and I was in charge of a squadron. Right now I'm a retired colonel, and I have already accomplished 1 mission to the space station. I flew with Kevin Ford and Evgeny Turelkin. Right now, I'm preparing for my second mission, and I'm so happy to have this great crew. I'm sure that we'll accomplish all of the missions, and it's going to be a great flight. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. So we're going to start now taking questions here in the room. We have a few guests with us. We have a number of reporters as well as some students from 4-H, which Peggy Whitson was involved in when she was in high school. So we're going to take questions here in the room, and then we'll go to the phone bridge. So if you're on the phone, be getting your question ready. Let's start over here with Mark.
Thank you, Mark Rowe, for Aviation Week and Space Technology. I think this is for Whitson. Can you talk about any commercial crew-related activities that you today or expect definitely to be working on during your
Well, as you know, things always change based on schedule and when things get lodged. But the one activity that we are going to be involved with that will be directly related in the future is we're moving the pressurized mating adapter 3 to Node 2 Zenith, and that will be our second docking port for the commercial crew providers. We work for NASA, so we have to have 2 of everything. So the primary one was just put on, and Kate Rubens and Jeff Williams just did the EVA to install the international docking adapter to that pressurized mating adapter. So that'll be one docking port. We'll be moving the pressurized mating adapter to the Node 2 Zenith and installing it there. Later, the second international docking adapter will arrive and be placed on it so that we'll have 2 docking ports for the commercial crew in the future.
All right, Rob?
Robert Space.com. I'm wondering what the delays to HTP-6 and to orbital phase Cygnus 5 and subsequently 7 missions are doing in terms of planning for your, not just your logistics, but the science that's going to be on board that you plan to execute, and just in terms of managing your schedule during the 6 months then.
Well, I think if everything goes and we get all the vehicles that are planned, we will have a very exciting and busy mission. I anticipate that it's going to be busy no matter what we end up having, because the ground is great at finding things for us to work on depending on what's available. But I think the ground team is having a real hard time now sorting, if this is, if in this scenario it's going to be difficult, and so they have to figure. And until one vehicle settles down into a spot, and then we can move things appropriately and figure those details out, that's going to be some of those fine details we don't know yet. But we're an adaptable crew. We will be able to do whatever it is that they give us to do, and we're looking forward to it. We have an incredible number of scientific investigations. Some are already on board. Some will be arriving as we go, while we're up there, but a lot of them are already on board, and we will be able to continue to conduct research on board the ISS. No matter what the shuffle is, we'll figure something out.
All right, how about Eric Berger?
Eric Berger with Architect for Peggy. Just wondered kind of your mindset when you came back from Expedition 16. Did you think you were going to get a chance to go back to the station for another increment? And how much of a challenge with the radiation lifetime exposure that astronauts have to deal with, whether to sort of work through that process with the physicians to sort of get approval and to get cleared to fly again?
Well, after I got back from the last mission, I knew that I wanted to fly in space again, so it was just a matter of time. And that's what the doctors told me, is that you have to wait a few years. And so I took on some other technical jobs while I was waiting, and now I'm back and ready to fly again in space. So everything's no issues. I'm cleared to fly.
Worth the wait, I assume.
Yeah, well, I would have rather gone sooner, but I'll deal with it. That's true. That's true. So it was worth the wait.
All right. Gina?
Thomas, you're flying with 2 veterans. What advice has they given to you about what to pack and what to expect?
Also, they give me lots of advice, and I like to listen to them because obviously they've been there. Peggy has built the space station by herself, and Oleg has helped a little bit too. So no, they're full of advice, but it's not like we have long conversations, but it's just during the our daily activities during training. Peggy is going to say, look, and this on station is going to be more like this. Okay, so point taken, and Oleg in the Soyuz is going to have some advice as well. So it's really a long process for me to learn from these two guys, and I think we're in good shape now. It's going to be exciting, and I hope I haven't forgotten anything in my suitcase for that big upcoming trip. But I think we'll be in good shape.
And Peggy, years ago, Mike Semperdini coined a term for you for your activities in the space station. He said anytime they planned something, they factored in what you call the Peggy factor, because you were so efficient and you worked so much faster than they planned. How hard is it to live up to your reputation?
Well, I don't know. I'm hoping I'll be able to live up to it. I'm looking forward to it. The ground teams have got lots of reserve science for me to do in case I am a little ahead, and so I'm looking forward to trying to live up to the name.
All right. Kevin, back in the back.
Kevin Quinn from Channel 13 here in Houston for Peggy Whitson. So can you clarify, please, this record that you were supposed to break? Are you still breaking it? And if not, what is your take on being just a couple of days short, please?
Well, the record was the total time in space for a U.S. crew member. So Jeff, when he lands later this week, will set that record. The original schedule was such that we thought I might break the record as well. That's not going to happen. I won't break his record because I'll be a couple of days short. So it's not a big deal. I still get to fly in space. It's going to be a great time.
And I'd rather stay up a couple extra days if you could.
Yeah, but it's not about an individual. You know, we do what we need to for the program and what makes the mission a success.
Probably we're going to rather stay in space even if it didn't have anything to do with the record.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I should clarify real quick. I think I misspoke earlier. I said Peggy already had 376 days in space, but it should have been 377. So, all right. I think we also have some students here in the room from 4-H who are going to have some questions for us. Why don't we start here in the front? Why don't you say your name?
Hello, I'm Tia Davis from Dallas County. My question is for Ms. Whitson. What advice do you have for girls interested in STEM careers?
Well, that's a great question. I think that young people should be pursuing careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. I think maybe it's not necessarily expected of you, and so I think for young ladies especially, it's important to pursue your goal no matter what, because you never know where you can end up. I'm totally surprised. So if you have an interest in any field in science or math, you know, find the one that interests you, pursue it, and yeah, you might not have a lot of other ladies around you, but if you do it and the next generation does it, we will become equal in it, and it won't be a question about whether or not you're male or female.
Good advice. Go ahead.
As it relates to, my name is Fatima Flores from Dallas County 4-H. As it relates to career opportunities, what type of scientist does NASA need?
That's a great question. We're doing a selection right now for astronauts, and we have all kinds of scientists. About 40% of the astronauts that end up getting selected are military and have aerospace engineering or other types of engineering backgrounds. And then for the non-military group of people, we have scientists in every field. So every field of math, physics, any kind of science that you can think of, biology, chemistry, and then all types of engineers, electrical, mechanical, everything that you would imagine. And we will pick the astronauts, the people that have the expertise in whatever scientific field that they possess, but we also want people that can work on small teams. It's great when you can work together as a team like we do and make something happen. And everybody's background and experience contributes and makes the team as a whole much stronger. And so I hope you strive for that.
All right. Did you have a question?
Sure. Hi, all of you. Welcome. And I guess my question is, Frank Borman, back in 1968, he wrote beautifully. I think he spoke Newsweek. about what it looks like when you're on space looking back at the Earth. Here we have a beautiful show of solidarity. We have Russia, we have France, we have the United States, of course. What's it like being in space looking back at Earth when you think about all of the trivial nationalistic differences in the wars that are plaguing the Earth? What's it like looking back at the Earth and this mission and this beautiful show of solidarity?
Well, I think the International Space Station, the legacy is going to be the international partnership. We have built something in low Earth orbit, traveling at 17,500 miles an hour. It was not technically an easy thing to do, but we did it internationally. Pieces of hardware from all over the world were constructed in low Earth orbit, and to me, it's actually miraculous that we didn't have a lot more problems than we did in that whole process. But I think that looking back at the Earth, it's very obvious as you look back, this is one planet, and we are one people.
All right. Here in the front.
Hi, Sophie Sanchez with Cosmic Chicago, Chicago Now. Most people are reluctant when new technology rolls out, reluctant to try it, the problems. What new tech do you guys see the most value in that's going to introduce in the space project?
I think one investigation that's actually coming up during our flight is that it's called NICER. I'm really bad with NASA has lots of acronyms. It's a neutron star internal composition explorer, something like that.
Good job.
But it's actually a very cool investigation looking at neutron stars, which are the result of supernovas that happen to stars, and then the scientists want to look at those stars, but because the X-rays don't make it through our Earth's magnetic field, we can't study it and examine it on the ground. So the ISS is going to serve as the platform for making these observations. But I think a really neat side effect of that is they're also doing a technology demonstration, trying to develop a space navigation system, and using the X-rays because they are very continuous and have a very continuous periodicity that allows them to potentially develop a space navigation system looking at neutron stars all around us throughout the galaxy. And that could prove to be space navigation, just like we have GPS satellites around the Earth. Well, once we leave Earth, we don't have GPS anymore. So this would be the next level of our GPS system, except it's going to be at a much bigger scale.
All right, we're going to take a couple more questions from students, but just a reminder real quick that if you are on the phone bridge and have a question, press *1 to get that question entered in. And also be sending your questions in on social media using the hashtag AskNASA. All right, how about right there, kind of in the middle? Yes.
What were some fears you had to overcome?
Some fears that I had to overcome? For me, I think the fear of the Russian language, possibly. It actually was very difficult for me to learn the Russian language. But I think I was a biochemist coming into a very engineering-oriented field. And so learning all the new other fields that are required to be successful as an astronaut was very scary for me. And I just had to keep trying and study harder and keep pushing to learn more. I don't know, Thomas, what were some of your fears?
Yeah, I think so. One distinction you have to make is that courage is not experiencing fear. It's natural to fear, to be afraid. If you're not afraid, it doesn't mean you're brave. It means you're crazy. So so courage is all about realizing your fears and then trying to overcome them. And it's natural to be afraid. The day I'll climb on the rocket, I'll be a little bit afraid, to be honest, because it is scary. So it's all about, courage is all about realizing that and still going. So if you can do this in your life, then you're the bravest man I know, because that's what it's all about. It's all about still trying, even though you're afraid. That's what matters, I think.
Okay, one more here.
Hello, my name is Jocelyn Merlo, and I wanted to ask that what was most difficult about returning home?
Returning home. Well, it's very hard to leave Space Station because it's such a fantastic home. Has a phenomenal view, best view ever. But we actually also have physiological changes. So our bodies change while we're in space. And coming home, we have to readapt to gravity again. So we've been floating around and moving through the station for 6 months at a time. And, you know, the most I have to do is push like this to move across the module. And so we have to do exercise and do all these things to try and prevent the ill effects of space flight so that we can come back strong and be healthy. But for me, that first 24 hours is just not very pleasant. I was going around the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden the Earth's going around me at 17,500 miles an hour. So it's very disruptive to the neurovestibular system. For some people, for me it is. And so it takes a little time to adapt. But if you keep exercising and pushing yourself, your body remembers finally, oh yes, you're back on Earth. Poor gal. You have to go on.
All right, why don't we take a break now and take some questions from the phone bridge? I believe we've got space.com online.
Ms. Wonderling, your line is open.
Yes. Space.com? Okay, so why don't we take a break now instead and get some questions from social media? Do we have any, Haley?
Yeah, so we have a great one from Ben on Twitter, and he's wondering, are you flying a 6-hour or a 2-day rendezvous? And can you talk about some of the tests you're going to do to the new Soyuz vehicles?
Oleg.
Я все-таки надеюсь, что у нас будет прямая схема стыковки, очень быстрая. Вот, это для меня будет впервые, поэтому очень интересно испытать на себе именно такой быстрый полет. А скорость, вопрос про скорость, что там было?
Ну, какие задачи у нас будет? Самое главное, чтобы испытать новый корабль.
Задачи по новому кораблю?
Да.
Так, корабль новый, в течение всего полета мы будем выполнять тесты различных систем управления. На корабле уже испытанная работает новая система навигации. Вот, изменились контуры управления двигателем, он стал еще надежней, поэтому закончить все испытания корабля очень важно, и наш экипаж, я уверен, с этим справится хорошо.
So in terms of the fast rendezvous and docking profile, this is going to be the first time for me, and I hope this plan holds. As for the new vehicle, we are going to finish the testing out of the new Soyuz vehicle in real-time conditions. We're going to finish the testing of the radio control system. There have been some upgrades to the propulsion system, has become more reliable, or the navigation system has been upgraded. And we're going to finish the tests, and I'm sure they will go great, and the mission will be fully accomplished.
Okay.
So we have another somewhat related one from Peter on Twitter, and he's wondering what will be the first thing the crew does after they've finished the phone calls to family on board?
Actually, usually on board, they schedule the safety briefing. And the crew, the experienced crew, the crew that's up there, the crew of 3 that's been there for several months, will take our crew around and make sure that, you know, we do training, of course, here on the ground to prepare safety-wise. But we will be going through the station and, yes, finding it exactly where it is and what does it look like when you're in space and floating in different orientations, just to see and touch where all the safety hardware is. That's the first thing that we try and do when we get on board.
And we have one more that is probably good for anyone to answer. And Sadie on Twitter is asking, what types of experiments are you looking forward to conducting?
So there'll be, like Peggy said, there's a range of, I think, more than 300 experiments over a 6-month mission. So it's hard to pick just a few ones, but some of the most exciting we're doing now are deal with stem cells, which is a completely new area of research on board the space station. DNA sequencing has just started with Kate Rubins a few weeks ago.
Just this week, I think.
Just this week. So there's all kinds of exciting research. I don't like to focus on one particular experiment, but I like to dedicate more attention to the ones that have clear spin-offs to the ground, because we're doing space research. to further our presence into space, but we're also doing research on board the ISS to benefit directly the Earth using the proprieties of the space environment to find new advances and discoveries that wouldn't be possible on Earth. So I guess there's not just one field of research that's better than the other, but it's all about making space useful for Earth, and that's what matters for us.
Okay. All right. Just a reminder, if you have a question on the phone bridge, you can press *1 to answer that question, and we're going to try again with space.com now.
Ms. Watering, your line is open.
Hi, so my name is Hanukkah Whitering from space.com, and this question is for Peggy and Oleg. I'm wondering why you decided to return to the space station, and also if there's anything that you would like to do while you're there that you have not been able to do before.
Well, the why is I have never had any part of my job. I love working at NASA, but the part that has been the most satisfying on a day-to-day basis, hour to hour, minute to minute, has been working on board the space station. It doesn't matter if I'm cleaning the filters. I feel like I'm helping personally push forward exploration. And so I have that satisfaction that I don't from any job here, even on the ground. And so that's the why I want to go again. And the thing I'm looking forward to doing the most is actually the cupola window was not up there when I was there before, and I think that is going to be a phenomenal view. So I plan on hanging out in the cupola window quite a bit.
Oleg?
Да, я тоже хочу сказать, почему хочется вернуться, потому что профессия космонавта, астронавта, она очень редкая. И, к сожалению, выполняем полеты очень редко. Поэтому как пик всей подготовки к полету является непосредственно сам полет. Да, у нас много задач на Земле, мы много общаемся с детьми, с учеными. Но чтобы самореализоваться, нужно обязательно попасть в космос, полетать долгое время на станции и желательно сделать это несколько раз. И наша научная программа позволяет быть занятым практически 24 часа в сутки. И мы стараемся оправдать надежды ученых, строителей, конструкторов, чтобы полностью оправдать их надежды, связанные с космосом, с работой станции, с работой корабля. Поэтому хочется работать, работать и работать.
So why do I want to come back to space? Actually, the profession of a cosmonaut or an astronaut is quite a rare one. And the flight is the pinnacle of training and of the preparation. Yes, we do talk to kids, we do work with scientists, but going to space means that this is the final stage of our work, this is the utmost achievement we can have. Given that Russian science allows us to be busy 24/7, we can, by being in space, affirm and realize all of the hopes that the scientists, the designers, the structure specialists, anybody had for us in terms of exploring space.
Okay. I believe we also have been collecting, or ESA has been collecting questions from social media themselves, and we have Jules Grandsire, I think, online to ask some of them.
Hi, Brandy. This is Jules from the European Space Agency Public Affairs. And yes, we've been collecting, indeed, a lot of questions through our social media from ESA all day. And we have, for example, this question we received on Instagram from Karm Kirka Leibert 13. That's for Thomas. And Thomas, he wonders, when did you decide to become an astronaut?
That's a great question. I decided, well, I wanted to become an astronaut since I was a kid. Except I didn't know it was something you could do in your life. I mean, you can see astronauts on TV, but how do you become an astronaut? I had no idea. But I started doing the things I liked, which were studying science, doing sports, learning foreign languages, traveling, and then I became an engineer, and then I became a pilot. And suddenly I realized that it put me in a great position to fulfill my dreams. And it's what the selection is all about. They're going to try to make the people match what the position needs. And we're going to be looking for people who love science, people who are comfortable in a technical environment, people who want to explore, people who like to exercise regularly, hardworking, hard-charging people. So actually, I realized I could become an astronaut only very late. We don't have that many selections in Europe, unfortunately. It's like one selection every 15 years, so I was lucky enough to be at the right place at the right time. And I decided to try because, again, that's what you should do in life. You should try. It doesn't matter if you fail, as long as you do your best. But the worst that can possibly happen is if you don't try. We have many opportunities, I think, in Europe, in the US, in Russia. So if we don't seize them, if we don't make the most of what we're being offered, then I think we're missing out. And that's what I try to do in my life. I try to make the most of everything I'm being offered, and it worked fine for me. So I can't see why it wouldn't work for somebody else.
Jules, did you have another
question?
question?
And talking about making the most, we have another question from Facebook this time, from Christoph House. He's asking, what major innovation or experiment will you be testing during your flight, Thomas? We heard about CADMOS, for example. Is there anything you can name here?
Yeah, absolutely. We have so we talked about science and research, which is obviously a big part of what we're doing. We're also doing technology experiments, and lots of them are being controlled from CADMOS in Toulouse. So we're going to test a new way of sampling the water on board the space station, and it's a very new technology in cooperation with a very big pharmaceutical group in France. And if this is successful, it could be applied in developing countries because it's very portable and it's very easy to do. We're going to have experiments looking at fuel in spherical tanks inside the ISS, and this is a model for satellites, except we'll be able to access, of course, inside the modules, those tanks, and we'll be able to interact with them. And this experiment is called fluidics. So there's a whole array of experiments that aim not only at research, but also at technology, trying to find new technology, develop new technologies, again, for the benefit of space exploration, but also for the benefit of people on Earth.
All right, Jules, I think we have time for
we
one.
We have another good, yes?
Go ahead, one more.
We have another a good question from Loic D. Space from France we received on Facebook. You are a very multicultural crew of 3, and he wonders what are the challenges linked to this, to the fact that you come from 3 very different cultures on your day-to-day training and life.
So pick the food is the most difficult challenge. No, actually, it is not. It is not. But no, you're right. And spacefaring, human spaceflight, above everything else, is a very multicultural endeavor. I mean, European Space Agency is already 22 countries today. We have NASA, we have Russia, we have Canada, we have Japan. So people from all over the world. We have to speak the same language, we have to understand each other, and we bring that to the next level because we have to do this in a very, very extreme environment. When we're sitting in the Soyuz with Oleg, we have to understand one another because we have to react to everything that could happen, and it needs to be fast. So I guess it takes a lot of work, but that's good. That only makes things better. I think it's always easier to just fall back on what you already know and then stay in your comfort zone, but that's not how you learn. The way you learn is actually by getting out of your comfort zone. And yeah, I'm going to try to do this in Russian, like Peggy said before. I've never done that before. Am I able to do it? I don't know. I'll try. Let's see what happens. And that's what we've done at a huge level with the International Space Station. And guess what? We've been very, very successful. So it can be done. It sets the standard, I think, for the future of space exploration. And I hope we continue down that route because there's still a lot to be learned from one another.
All right. Anything to add as far as the difficulties of working with a multicultural crew?
You know, I think there's challenges all the time, but the part that is fun is being a crew and a team and figuring out where those challenges are and working around them and making the best of that team in spite of maybe it being a little more difficult to communicate sometimes, or maybe having a different approach to answering a problem. But in the end, having those different approaches is what makes us stronger because we have different ideas and different solutions to different problems. Absolutely. So I think it's definitely something that we can learn from. and used as a model, not just for spaceflight, but for everyone.
Anything to add, Oleg?
Я могу только добавить, что именно вот уровень профессионализма помогает выделить у каждого из нас то положительное, сильное, которое поможет не только нам, как экипажу, но и всем людям, которые работают на космос. Вот это тяжело именно определить и выделить, взять и использовать.
I'd like to add only one thing, is that the level of professionalism that each one of us has allows us to showcase and to use those particular traits or features that are particularly useful to everybody on the mission or on the ground. And it's very important to be able to distinguish that particular thing which is of utmost importance.
All right. I think we're going to go back now to the phone bridge. We've got another question there from CBS.
Yeah, hi, it's Bill Harwood. It's a very quick, trivial question for Tomas. I was reading your bio, and it said you played the saxophone, so I was wondering if A, you're any good or not, and B, if you might have a horn on board when you get there.
Yeah, when they say it's a really quick and easy question, it's always the worst question. So no, I'm not good at all at playing the saxophone. I used to do that when I was a kid. I would share my free time between doing sports and playing some music, which I loved. Unfortunately, I haven't played that much in the last few years because of training for a mission to space, which is the best excuse I've found, and also because of the constant traveling. But nonetheless, I'll try to bring my saxophone on board. It hasn't been officially confirmed yet, but I know ESA is working on it. And you never know, it could be really cool on a Sunday. I hope it won't bother my crewmates. I'll try to find the most isolated corner of space station so that in case I'm really not doing well at all, it won't be too much pain for you guys.
And we'll let you know whether or not he's any good or not.
but no, I like the idea that with space station we're also opening the door to art, to some other disciplines that were not necessarily present at the beginning of human spaceflight. Just because if you send people to space for 12 days, they'll be working 24 hours a day, and they won't have time to really express this side that they might have in themselves. And with space station, we have our Sundays afternoons, so people can work on their own projects. They can start writing a book. They can play some music. They can take pictures. They can shoot videos. So it's a more artistic side of the astronauts in general, but also a more artistic side of life. And I think it's great. If we really want to be the ambassadors of humanity in space, we also have to be open to that less technical side of the people. We want to represent everybody.
Okay. I think we have time for a couple of follow-ups here in the room, if anybody has any questions. Mark?
Thank you, Mark. I'm wondering what your training plans are remaining in the U.S. and then what happens next before you join up again, I guess, and start serving.
Well, last week we finished up our last three-person emergency training. This week, Thomas and I have some robotics training together, and we've been having a lot of briefings, just general systems briefings of, since our training is completed, you know, what changes have happened on board, what's new, don't forget this part, don't forget that part. So just a lot of the fine details of the systems are happening. And Thomas and I also have one more NBL, the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory spacewalk practice run that we'll have. And Oleg and Thomas will both depart after next week. And we'll head over to Russia for 6 to 7 weeks of the final Soyuz training over there, and the final Russian segment emergency training there as well. So it should be a pretty busy time for us in the next few weeks. But it's kind of they're kind of repeating things now, which is good. So it's not all new. We've heard it before, so we're ready to go.
I think I saw a hand there in the back.
Meg Rickman with Iowa Wesleyan University. First off, we are very proud of our alum, Dr. Whitson. My question actually is, you have been such a trailblazer in space exploration, and what has been your personal greatest accomplishment? And to follow that, is there something that you hope to still accomplish or that you hope that NASA would accomplish during your lifetime?
Well, I really don't feel like I have a lot of regrets. I feel very lucky to have been in and had a lot of opportunities throughout my career, even before I started working at NASA, but I feel very lucky to have gotten here. In terms of goals for NASA, before I die, we need to be living on Mars.
Agree.
And I might not live that long, so they better get with it.
All right, good.
Well, you know, this is a question for all three of you. We've got a group of kids in this room, and then we've got kids all over the world who are looking up to you and really admire you for what you're about to accomplish and what you're about to do. And a lot of us trying to connect the dots of life and how do you get from being a young person to an adult that, you know, is living out of this world. So can you explain what advice you give?
Well, I think it's important, you know, Thomas kind of touched on it, and I think it's very important. All of us, you know, we might have interests and we might have dreams, but we might not try to live up to them. We might think that's not possible for me. And being able to step a little bit outside of what's comfortable for you and say, I'm going to take a chance, I'm going to try anyway, is really important. So I think striving to be just a little bit uncomfortable in your life, pushing yourself to be just a little bit uncomfortable, is going to get you more places than you would ever have dreamed, because you will make it.
And I think if I can add up to that, I think it's a success. I don't know how to define success, but I think it's a combination of so many different things, which they don't all happen at school. It's very important to be as successful academically as you can, but that's not the only thing. I mean, it's not, if you have the best grades, it won't necessarily get you to the astronaut corps. You need to be able to work as a team. You need to have some empathy. You need to be patient. You need to be able to communicate. You need to understand. And you can learn this in so many ways. So the advice I give to kids is, of course, do your best at school, and that's what matters most. But then also try to experiment and try to get as many different qualifications, if you want, as you can. Like, try to do sports. That's important for team spirit, for relating to people. Music is great. It's going to develop some side of your brain that you might not be using, even if you're not very good at playing the saxophone, and things like this. So it's not only an academic achievement. It's also the result of so many experiences that you can have in life. So try to go out there and try to do things, even if it's not only at school. That's gonna get you somewhere. You might not understand why right now, but it's gonna get you somewhere at some point.
Anything to add, Oleg?
Я полностью согласен со своими товарищами по экипажу. Хочу единственное добавить, что прежде всего нужно уметь ставить правильные цели и всегда их добиваться. Поскольку чем выше поставлена цель, тем больше результатов в жизни вы достигнете.
I fully agree with my crew members, and I only wanted to add one thing. It's extremely important to set the right goal, because the higher the goal you set is, the more you'll be able to achieve in life.
Good advice. All right, I think that is all the questions for today. Oh, one more here in the front, and then we'll stop.
Okay, my question is, how do you mentally prepare yourself for such an intense mission?
How do I mentally prepare? Well, I think the training does that a lot, because you practice different scenarios and situations. It makes you comfortable in different scenarios and situations. So I think the training that leads up to a mission makes it reasonable and not as scary, not as unknown to you. It becomes more comfortable. And even though we can't train for every day of a 6-month mission, that would just take too long. And we have so many different investigations, 300 investigations going on. You can't train for all of them. And so you just have to be adaptable and understand what the procedures are telling you to do, and not be afraid to implement them and to just keep moving forward.
All right. Okay, with that, we are going to wrap up for the day, but you are going to want to be sure and tune in for a couple of things later. If you didn't get your Ask NASA question answered on social media, you'll have another chance on the International Space Station Facebook page. Peggy will be doing a Facebook Live today at around 4:30 p.m. Central Time. And then on Thursday, you'll also want to be sure and watch our spacewalk. Coverage for that begins here on NASA TV at 5:30 a.m. Central Time, and that will be another spacewalk by Jeff Williams and Kate Rubins, who are currently on the space station. With that, we'll wrap up for the day. Thanks for joining us.